Hello everyone and welcome to Laurence Plays Factorio Space Exploration with Krastorio². And in today's video we're going to start off by taking a look at how Tristan is expanding out, looking into sending out science probes. In space exploration, for the final tier 4 of energy science and astroscience, you have to send off specific probes, and these look like these sort of they're meant to be satellites. They look kind of like megaphones in the icons. But anyway, you've got a blue one that you send out for astro data, and I think that's sent out from solar orbit, and a pink one that's sent out from an asteroid belt. And they go out and they gather data, and then you collect the data, and you can bring that back in the form of data cards. So in order to do that, you need to launch a probe rocket, which is one of these things, from probe rocket silo. So there's a number of steps. You build a probe rocket silo in the area where you want to do your launches from. You then put a probe rocket in it, and you put a probe in it, and then it launches. And then you put a load of data cards in it, and it gives you the data back as useful information. So it's relatively straightforward, but it requires quite a lot of logistics, and that is sort of, that's the name of the game. That's what Factorio is all about. So Tristan has set up this area here. These machines aren't permanent; they're just there to give him as ways of sort of making a quick note of what's required. So you can see here that for the probe rocket, he requires holmium solenoids, aeroframe scaffolds, rocket sections, rocket fuel, and iridium plate, and so on for the other two as well. They're not enormously difficult things to make, although we do need holmium solar panels for this one, and no regular solar panels for this one. Oh, but we need and the aeroframe bulkheads here. So he's made a note of all the things that are required in these combinators down here, and that's sort of a to-do list to make sure he gets everything that's needed in order to make them. This is the area where he's planning to make them, and as you can see, it's mostly empty. He's put down a load of space scaffolding, so he's got a load of space to play with, and this is why we've been getting such a poor frame rate recently, because of all the bots have been building all of this. Although I can bump mine up a little bit now I'm not streaming. Or maybe I can't. Maybe I'm stuck at about 40 UPS, whatever I do. Anyway, let's not worry about that too much. So this is an area where he's going to be building up these probes and the area to build all of the stuff that's going to be needed to launch them. And presumably we'll have some spaceships that depart from here to go off to the appropriate places and do the launching of all those probes. In order to get hold of all the bits and pieces he needs in order to make the probes and the rockets, he's put in some extra stations down here, and these are the stations that are down below the whole bus area that are intended for just feeding things up into the trains that go up the elevator up into Norbit. And so along here we've added in, as well as the modules that I was asking for before, he's added in rocket fuel, because I missed that one out when I was making it, and we do need that up in Norbit already. So that was on me. He's also going to need the aeroframe bulkheads, not the scaffolds, the bulkheads, which is the next one along, holmium cables, holmium solenoids, and then there's some space along here for further expansion. And so the idea is that we're going to try starting to build all of these intermediate components down on Norvis, because it's going to be so much cheaper, because we'll be able to use the productivity modules. Yes, it's going to lead to a little bit more stuff going up and down in the elevator, but that's pretty cheap. Now that once we've got the elevator there and running, merely putting things through it is fairly cheap. There are a few other bits and pieces that are needed as well. So you need the rocket control modules to control your probes. So he's after I spent some time messing around with the belts for it before, because I thought I needed them and then realised I didn't, and then now it turns out we do. He's put in this belt along here, which is taking the rocket control modules from there and also from here, where they're being made as part of the current satellite rocket launch. And one of the other things we'll be able to do is, once we have probes in probe rockets in Norbit, is launch these sort of satellites from there instead, which will be much cheaper, because instead of having to make a full one of these rockets, you can make a much cheaper probe rocket and launch it in that. So we've got all of the rocket control modules being fed down here, and they're all being shipped off all the way down to the train systems over here, so we can start sending them up when we're ready. In fact, he has a probulator pickup, it's described as. So he's got a station already in place down here that is going to take all the bits and pieces that are needed, and so far he's feeding in, well, as you can see, we've got rocket sections, we've got rocket control modules, airframe scaffolds, rocket view, and so on. We've got all the bits and pieces that he's realised he needs so far, because down here, as you've seen before, we've got this sort of massive bus providery system that is just bringing in all of so many different possible things that we might need, and there's a bit of space left over here as well, and in the future, if we realise we need even more, we can bring them in across here. So there is a lot of potential here for a lot of stuff to be brought up to Norbit, and we're just going to gradually expand this as we need more and more different things. So he's pulled them in through there, which is quite nice. The rocket sections have been a little bit funny, because up here, this is where we're currently making the rocket section, or the cargo rocket sections, and let's see, they're being fed out onto a belt here, which goes into a chest. So we're storing them in here, and this is a green chest as well. So this will bring out, we will attempt to pull out any cargo rocket sections that are available in the logistics network, and that should actually be up at 48, so it tries to completely fill itself up. And this should only be loading when this isn't quite full, just to make sure we're pulling them all out of the logistics network. But never mind. They're then being passed across here, where they were being put into the rockets, these two rocket silos, in order to allow us to take stuff up to Norbit, but we don't need those anymore, so these should probably be dismantled and their rocket parts given back to the system. They're then also being brought along here, where they're then turned into stacked cargo rocket sections, and again we're trying to pull them out of the logistics system, although not particularly successfully. And then they're all being fed onto a belt that comes round over to here, and then this control here is saying run if there's no right, so these are supposed to be pulling in any packed rocket sections that are out in the logistics network, except they should probably be green rather than yellow to make it a bit more likely that they'll work. But the idea is that then these are getting unpacked down here and passed back into the system. So this inserter here will feed them across at any point when there's zero. Okay. So if this belt is ever empty of rocket sections, then this inserter will run, feed them down into here, we'll unpack them and pass them back up again to make sure the system never runs out. That's a kind of weird system. I'm not sure. I feel like I don't know how this is supposed to be working. It's all rather strange. Oh, but I have just noticed that this system here is for emptying out the stacked rocket sections that come down from Norbit and are unloaded by this exerter and then put into all these chests to be passed over to here. It's all a bit of a mess, if I'm being honest. But somewhere in here we are taking out stacked cargo rocket sections, and I have to admit I'm not 100% sure where from, but they are making it down onto one of the belts that comes down here and then disappears off forever down the bus. Okay, I've finally solved the mystery. So from up here, there's also a splitter that is sending out cargo rocket sections round this way in very, very small numbers. The idea is that basically that we only have one. We try to keep 0 on this belt as much as we can. This belt appears to be broken, or at least is stopping them. Oh no, it's holding them as long as there's anything on the belt at all. Right, okay. So we're holding them up here, and then gradually releasing the cargo rocket sections to travel down this belt, and then all the way down way across here to here, and this is where they were previously going down to the old spaceport down here, where we had various rockets that were sending off to the different exoplanets with supplies on them. But also Tristan is now pulling the cargo rocket sections off this belt, as you'll see as this one comes along here, like that, into here, where he's now making them into stacked rocket sections, which can then be fed along this never-ending belt of doom all the way down to the trains, where they can be sent up from there. So it's going to be incredibly slow, but it's probably also going to be sufficient. We don't need an enormous number of those up there. So, okay, it's a bit weird and convoluted, but it might just work. He says that he's also put in an advanced solar panel drop-off station. I'm not sure whether that's down on Norbit or in Norvis, although he probably will have said. I've just when I organised my thoughts, I've lost that. I couldn't find it, but we'll find it. But again, it's another one of the things that's going up for those probes. So yeah, the probe is coming along quite nicely, and it's nice that he's doing this, because it means that once I've finished faffing around with Talos, I'll have the hardest part of Astroscience 4 done for me. So that's very nice of him. We've also had a significant amount of work on keeping the supplies running, getting things going as we would like them to. And on a very minor note on that level, Tristan has added in this loop of rail round here to organise these stations a bit better and to make this whole system run a bit more nicely, which is kind of what I was talking about in last week's videos. So it looks like he's agreed with me. He says he's also prioritised this station. I don't know exactly how he's done that, but apparently he has. But that's because it's the fastest to unload, because it's got the green in its exerters and a chunk of green belt before it all starts to clog up over here onto the red belts. He's also trying to copy Marc's flooring style on the outside of the rails here, but the bots aren't having any of it, because there's so much for the bots to do that they're just I think the bots have gone on strike, to be honest. Let's have a look. Yeah, I don't see any bots flying around. I think the bots have actually gone on strike. He's also continued with improving the bus station. So now nearly all of these, if not actually, no, there's one there that's still a four warehouse. Nearly all of these are now single warehouse stations. So that's going to be hopefully a little bit better for our UPS. I don't know how much of a difference it's going to make, but hopefully it's going to be at least a bit better. And maybe over time we'll get some of the extra ones as well, and see if that helps. To be honest, I still feel that the free power systems. Well, I was going to say I feel like the free power systems are still part of the problem, but it looks like we've now actually removed them all from up here. So it must just be the sheer scale of the base and some of the other stuff we've been doing that's a bit inefficient, like having millions of bots flying around. That's the problem. But I guess we'll try and come up with more ways to improve things as we go along. Up in Norbit, he's continued tidying things up. There's now we're now dumping all of the glass that's over in the recycling area. That's all being brought over to here and put into a massive buffer here, where it's all going to get turned into mirrors. Because, well, you might as well, I guess. It's going to be better generally to produce the mirrors from this glass rather than from stuff we're shipping in by delivery cannon. And it'll allow us to get rid of all of the glass over here that's just been filling up these warehouses and causing problems. Now that we're not spitting out any stone down this way. So this is now full. This has now got all of the glass. We can send it off over there to get to the overflow drop. And now next time we can reuse this station for something more useful, like, I don't know, maybe water. I know we've already got a water one. Like, we'll find something that we want to ship in over here. The copper is still being sent over to material science, but I believe this looks like we've now got rid of all of that, much to Mike's disgust, because we squeezed it in as a back thing on here. So we've got the copper now being pushed through here and being used before he uses all of the copper ingots that are being brought over to here as well. So that's going to get rid of the excess of the copper, and then once all this is emptied, this can then all be demolished because we don't need this anymore, because we're now shipping all of the copper ore back down to Norvisk because we've got the elevator. So we can get rid of this later. The iron needs to be brought over in a similar way. We don't seem to be doing that yet, but never mind. We can pick that up at some point. Maybe we'll switch this station over to be doing iron and then just reroute the belt down here instead of up here, or maybe we'll just use a different station. All things are possible. We also had some problems over in the recycling area because there's mountains and mountains of scrap coming in, but it wasn't getting processed by the scrap pulverizers up here because we had too much heavy oil. And it turned out that we had too much heavy oil because we'd run out of water to use in the cracking process over here, because we'd stopped bringing it up in barrels from Norvis, because bringing it up in barrels from Norvis is a horrible idea. But we hadn't finished the upgrade for that, which is to start bringing it over in trains. So as I showed you a moment ago, we now have a stop up here where trains can unload water into this tank, and it can then be passed down here happily and then used for all the processes down here. And that means we're now getting through the heavy oil nice and quickly. As you can see, this is basically empty. There's a bit in these tanks up here. We appear to be, yes, we're maintaining a supply of 20,000 in here in case we need to make it into more thermofluid or anything else that uses heavy oil, or like lube perhaps. Although I think we're bringing lube up from down on Norvis. But we're getting through any excess. We are now ripping through nice and quickly with the system over here, turning it all straight into petroleum gas that we're then using for many things like chemical gel, and I think it's used for some of the processing down here as well. So yeah, we're getting through lots and lots of that, but that's okay. It's what it's there for. Now, as you can see, a train has just arrived with a massive quantity of memory card substrates, so we're pumping those through, and they're coming out here as fast as they're going in. The problem is, basically, this train is now practically empty, so we're not bringing up these substrates as fast as we're getting through them. So we're going to very, very soon have a problem here where it's going to start gapping again, and we're not going to be able to run the memory card production facility down here as fast as we would like to. But over here, I note that we have a full train, and we have 2/3 of a train in the warehouses, so things are going quite well with memory cards. This is the most caught up I've seen it for a very, very long time. So even though this system over here is struggling to bring up enough of the substrates, it seems like we've built up more or less enough of a buffer that right now we're okay. Of course, as soon as Marc does Bio 3, Tristan does Energy 4, and I do Astro 4, that's going to demand another. Well, they're going to demand another 20,000 cards each, as I discussed last week, and that's a lot. And we're going to struggle to keep up with that, because even this train only has 5,000 in it, so it's 4 full train loads to get a new science pack up and running. Yeah, good luck you guys over here with all of this, but maybe if we leave it running for long enough, you can see there's the end of it here. Maybe if we leave all this system running for long enough, building up some buffers, then we'll be okay. But we shall have to see. That brings us to the end of what Tristan has been doing. So Marc has also been has been hard at work. He says he's fixed the priority on the stone train. So I guess presumably there was some stone trains. There were some trains over here that weren't getting filled up, or rather these trains, the stone that comes from here wasn't getting used as a priority, or maybe it was because of the maybe it was the stone that's being produced as part of the this process over here that we weren't getting rid of. How full's this? This is basically empty, so that's fine. It looks like it's working, probably because, you know, Marc has gone in and fixed it, so that tends to lead to things working quite well. So yeah, he's done some work on that, and now we're still probably getting through enormous quantities of stone down here with all these bricks and concrete and everything else that's being produced down here, and then being used to carpet the entire known universe. But I guess we're probably okay for it at the moment. He's done a rebuild of the plastic facility, which I think was over here. Yes, this is plastic. Okay, so he's gone in here with these. He's done a sort of a partial upgrade here. So he's upgraded everything to tier 3 productivity modules and put in wide area beacons with tier 3 speed modules. So this system will now run much faster than it did before, and with a slightly higher productivity boost. He hasn't gone in and done the full upgrade to the advanced chemical plants, which would allow us to get slightly more productivity modules in there. But to be honest, this is probably going to be absolutely sufficient. It could have been made slightly more efficient on the modules by potentially putting some more, by extending these rows of oil refineries out a bit further and having them share. But this system is nice and modular. You can see that these refineries are feeding these chemical plants. These refineries are feeding these chemical plants, and so on. I think there might be no, there isn't even any pass through between them. They are all completely separate. So that keeps it nice and clean and separate. It means if you want to add in more, it's relatively easy to do. You can just paste in, as long as you can find the input for it, you can just paste in more and more belts, more and more clones of this. Sorry. I also noticed that the plastic belts are green belts. I suspect they probably weren't before, but that, I guess, means that when these systems are running at high speed, let's see if we can nudge them into running at a bit higher speed. No, this is absolutely full. Okay. I suspect when these are running out absolutely flat out, we're going to be getting enormous quantities of plastic flowing down here, and that's good. And so that's allowing us to keep up with the demand. We've had a fixed uranium mine, so over here this one was apparently problematic, and now it isn't. That's good, I guess. And he's put in a another core mine somewhere in the far distant north. It's probably this one up here, but who knows? So all of these things are adding to our supply of the sort of the relatively mundane resources, things like plastic and uranium and copper and stone and all those sort of things. He's been handling, making sure that everything carries on working with those. What are all these logistics bots doing? They're taking lots and lots of wood from the warehouses of shame down to this requesty chest over here, because apparently we've just started using wood for something. Goodness knows what we're using wood for, but the bots are bringing it over very dutifully. I have also been working on relatively minor things that have been causing problems. So when I set up this train to bring all of the stuff up to Nauvis orbit, I forgot that it was going to need batteries to power it, because apparently I didn't think it all the way through. So I put in a nice simple system here where the batteries are brought up one belt, and then they're loaded in by these inserters into the train, and then the flat batteries are unloaded by these inserters, and they get passed off down here. It was pointed out to me by someone that I could actually have just only put this in at one end of the train, because the train turns round at this end, but doesn't turn round at the other end. So this means each time it comes here, it's the opposite way round. And for this station, that doesn't matter at all, because we're just unloading everything into the same warehouse. It doesn't matter which way round the train is. And the fact that the same end is the front on the ground and then will always end up here would mean it probably wouldn't matter anyway. However, for the science train, as you may remember, because this one turns round at this end and at the other end, so it should always be in the same way round in the station. But if we did try to put a third station onto this train's route, we would have to make sure it was a pass-through station, not a stop and then reverse back out station, because if we turn it round during its travels, then none of these science packs are going to get loaded into the right place, nothing's going to work, and we won't be able to ship the science around until we turn the train round again. So you have to be careful about that sort of thing, but in this particular case, we're just dumping everything into one warehouse. It doesn't matter at all. On a very similar note, when it comes to train fueling, apparently this is a blind spot of mine, I realised, or it was pointed out to me, I forget which way around, that I'd also forgotten to fuel the trains that were coming to here. So a lot of these trains aren't going to get refueled at the other end. So for example, the ones that go off to get the modules, there probably isn't going to be a refueling system in Module City, although there might be actually. It's quite possible there is, but there isn't necessarily automatically going to be one. There probably isn't going to be one wherever the aeroframe bulkheads come from, and all these sort of things. So it's a good idea to make sure there's some refueling happening here. So I put in this station, which is calling for processed fuel. It gets dropped off here in the perfectly normal station way, but then the belt loops around here, splits into two, and we've got one belt going along the upper upper stations and one going along the lower stations, and all of the trains can then refuel from here. So this just means we can be sure that none of the trains that come to here will ever run out of fuel, because the amount they pick up from here is enough to get them to wherever they pick up their stuff from and back again easily on a single tank, as it were. Somebody said in the comments that they were worried about my lithium production facility over here. So because I've put productivity modules into these two chemical plants, they were saying, does that mean that you're actually producing an excess of more chlorine than you're using up? Because in theory, this whole system is supposed to be closed loop. You produce a little bit of chlorine to get you started, and then the chlorine gets passed through here, and then it comes out as a byproduct to this station. It's fed back in again. So the same chlorine just goes round and round. But if you have productivity modules in here, then that might mean that when this runs, you'll get slightly more hydrogen chloride out, and that means that when you run it up here, you'll get slightly more chlorine. You'll get more chlorine out for the amount of chlorine that went in, and so you might end up with more of it than you know what to do with. And so I checked, and yes, this tank down here has got very, very full. So that's quite a worry. In an attempt to fix that, I put in this belt here that's taking some of the lithium chloride away and then feeding it into this delivery cannon that's sending it up to orbit to be used as in one of the sciences. I think it's a biological science somewhere. And so that means we're using this one as a priority, at least as long as there's enough left over here. And so my hope was that we'll get through it, we'll ship out enough chlorine in the form of this lithium chloride round here through this delivery cannon that this tank down here will gradually empty. It doesn't seem to have happened yet. We're at 195,000 in here, which I'm pretty sure is more than when I put the system in. So we'll have to keep an eye on this, and maybe just take out the productivity modules from these systems. I don't know. That feels a little bit wrong, but maybe we'll have to. Also, I think I need to put in some circuit conditions. Firstly, to tell this belt to stop running if there's ever less than, I don't know, 20,000 in these tanks down here. Whatever this, probably more than whatever this stops at, but less than but not too much less. So 20,000 will be good. So we'll tell this belt here to stop if there's ever less than 20,000 in here. And also, we should probably prioritize this belt over this one, because the lithium chloride, because we're not bleeding off the lithium chloride from here, and therefore we're going to potentially have the then if this one is generating all of our lithium, or a lot of our lithium, then we could have some problems. So I think we should probably then also wire in this one. In fact, I already did that bit. This one is wired in to only run when there's less than 8,000 lithium in here. So at the moment there's 2 trains worth in here. If it gets below 1 train's worth, and this hasn't been able to fill it up before the next train comes around to load up, then we'll start running the second facility as well. So I've already done half of what I was thinking, but I think I also need to keep an eye on the output here and the total amount of chlorine in this. Oh, it's gone down to 194 now, so that is an improvement. Yeah, it's a little bit of a worry. I mean, I could just put in a couple more tanks like this, and then it won't be a problem for a very, very long time. But that's a kind of half-assed solution. It's still going to be a problem eventually, so I don't think I really want to do that. I mentioned last time that there was the solid fuel drop-off station over here wasn't working, and I thought I'd fixed it, but apparently I didn't fix it properly because it's still not working. So I'll need to take another look at that. This train should not just be sat here. There should be... Are we still calling for a train? We are still calling for a train as well. It's even worse. So over here we have, because we're seeing it's a signal of 10,000 coming in there. We've got 10,000 there. We've got -1 on... It's because we're not reading the signal off here. That might actually be my fault from when I was trying to fix it earlier. So we feed that over here. Let's do it. Jump it like that, and you don't do anything. So we feed that over to here. Now we have a train limit of 0. Okay, so now we can... Oh, that's completely full. We can tell that train to clear off, to go back to solid fuel pickup, which is apparently full. There's nowhere to pick up solid fuel from, but eventually, once it's ready to go, it will go, and yeah, this problem will be sorted out. We should also be able to drop this to, like, I don't know, yay much now as well. So there should be enough room for a train to drop off, but not enough for it to get stuck like. But it shouldn't get stuck like this. That's the hope. There's also a shortage of power here. Oh, that's just for fueling up the train. So this is down here. This is what I was saying about Module City probably already having its own fueling area, and it turns out it does, as you can see there. However, when I say I've been saying because I think it probably was me. When I came through here and redesigned this with the ripped out all of the excess warehouses, I didn't finish off all the cabling properly, so that's on me. My bad. But still, I can fix that up in the next stream and get it working properly. Finally, on the sort of the general productivity side, I noticed that we weren't producing the basic space science fast enough, which is kind of surprising, because this is the easiest of all the sciences. So I just chucked it full of speed modules. Now it's running much faster than necessary. As you can see, we've got everything. We've got it filled up all the way around over to here. And granted, we're struggling a little bit to produce enough belts to keep this system running, but the system is basically okay. I don't know why this machine stopped running. Oh, it'll be because we've got enough in total in storage. Okay, that's fine. Marc has spent lots of time doing spaceship design work. I don't know, I don't think there's anything I can really point to about it. We have decided that we're going to have our spaceship park down here, so we'll have areas for lots and lots of spaceships to land and refuel and unload and all that sort of, and probably load as well over here. And then, because it's fairly close to the train system, it's in its own sort of area of rail, so it's going to cause a fair amount that we may run into some congestion problems with trains running up and down here at some point in the future. If we do, we already have a plan to run a line from the bottom of here all the way over to here, and to put in another sort of bypass route, maybe even over to here and come up over this way, just to keep things running nice and cleanly. But I think that's probably not going to be necessary. You don't tend to have enormous amounts of stuff being shipped around up in orbit. As you can see, right now there are no trains running whatsoever, so I think we might well be okay with that, but it is a thing we've considered for the future if necessary. We could even do another one over the top of here as well if we wanted to. Marc has also been doing some more work on the air purifier belt that we were looking at last week. This is the ludicrously long one that goes all the way around the entire world, trying to keep everything clean. So he's been doing things like making sure that he's getting rid of all the little outposts on it. So there was somewhere where there was a copper mine. It was probably here, and so he's got rid of the outpost station, and he's now got it just filtering around the bottom of here like this. Filtering around. That was not an intentional pun. We did notice a few sort of areas of minor problematicness where there were massive clumps or gaps on the belts, but I think most of those have probably pushed their way through now. Oh no, here we go. So sort of like this, where you can see there's no clean filters, there's lots and lots of dirty filters. At some point, these machines are probably going to start to struggle because they'll run out of clean filters. This one's only got 2 left, for example, although they do last for quite a long time. So there are a few areas that are a little problematic, but the system is now finished to the point where if we just leave it for long enough, it will run all the way around, and we'll get all of the filters back into the correct places where they belong, which is apparently all the way over here, and getting them cleaned up. I also noticed that we had a lot of pollution leaking out from the bottom along here. So I came along here, and I possibly went a little bit overboard, but I put in a lot of air purifiers along here, and these are all going to now. Yes, a lot of them. There was a lot of pollution sneaking out the bottom here, and so the hope is that they will now be able to capture all the grot that's coming down this way, and it looks like it's been quite successful. We have still got a little bit of grubbiness around here. We might need to, but as I said, that could come out. That'll work, perhaps be fixed later if we straighten out this kink in the filter belt and just make it go straight across here to join onto here probably. And then we can put some filters across here to clean it up as it passes through the belt area. So that should be reasonably easy to do, and I think it's probably still worth doing, even if it's going to mean a little bit of rethinking, especially around here. But I imagine, yes, looking at the debug view, which is a complete mess, I know, but we can still put the filters on the bottom of here to clean up for after this core miner, instead of running them around the top and down the side here. So I think that'll be worth doing and will be a bit of an improvement. Let's get rid of that because that looked horrible. And so, as you can see, that's working pretty well. At some point in the dim and distant future, we should probably extend it again to come maybe down here and across here. Because there's a little bit of pollution being produced down here by the trains, but in general this isn't too bad. There's only a little bit of pollution being produced here, and it's mostly getting cleaned up by nature, by the trees and the ground and so on in this sort of area. So I think it's we're probably all right in this around here. And you can see once again the very, very square cut-offs of the pollution where we've got the filters running. A little bit leaked out over here, which is slightly unfortunate, but I think never mind. That's probably just that will have been when there was a shortage of filters running around there, and it's now going to be okay, and that'll just again be absorbed by the plants. So now we come on to the point where we look at the researches. We have completed Energy Weapon Damage 7, which is nice because that's going to give me a buff to all of those lasers in my suit that I was talking about yesterday, and of course to all of our turrets around the outside of the base. That's just straight up do a bit more damage with your lasers, so that's great. We've developed heavy composites, and these are a thing that you need for Material Science 4, and they're an intermediary, so we can potentially use them for making particularly good armors, modules, material for Catalog 4, as I said, shield projectors, better drills. They're an intermediate that you use for lots of things you might end up building. we researched material catalog 4 as well. So that's allowed Mike to start making actually making the material catalogs. We haven't done the science pack yet because we haven't quite got everything into the place where it's ready to be made. And until we've got the science pack almost being made, we don't really want to unlock it, because as soon as you unlock it, you get lots more of these things appearing in your list of things you can research, and it makes it harder to tell what's available to be researched right now. So we're leaving that one just for now. But as soon as the catalogs get over to the science park, then we can start doing that one. On a similar note, we've got Astro Catalog 4, and again, but not Astro Science Pack 4, because that means now I can start, when I come over to start building it, I won't have to do a blind build. I'll actually know what's available and be able to start straight up working on it. But we won't do this one, even though we could do it now, until we're ready, because if we did, we'd suddenly get all of these sort of things showing up, and that'd be a bit of a mess. Now, we're currently working on Mining Productivity 7. These mining productivities are great to have because they just mean you get more resources out of your mines without it costing anything extra in time, electricity, or ore, in fact. So you can get, when you dig up one piece of ore out of the ground, it turns into 1.n pieces of ore on the belt. So you actually do literally just get more stuff out of the ground than is actually there. So that's really nice. And we've got, I know we're not going to be able to do that one because we haven't got Bio 3 yet. So this is going to be the last one we do for a little while. And we're also doing Worker Robot Speed 9 to make the bots fly around a bit faster. But that's to come in the next stream, I imagine. And once again, because we've all been going around doing safe, sciencey things, we've not had any deaths. I'm sorry if that disappoints you, but I'm afraid we haven't. Yeah, but I'm sure I'm about to head back out to Talos, and it's dangerous out there. Mike's going to go to Kothar, so one of us is probably going to get killed. So watch this space for future videos where there's probably going to be some more deaths to add to the tally. So that brings us to the end of the video. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. We will be back on Monday to stream some more of the more Factorio Space Exploration and Krastorio². So we will be working on all of the things I've been talking about here in a sort of a, yes, we need to do a bit more of that kind of way. There will be a video coming out on Tuesday if you're not a channel supporter that I'm really quite pleased with. The supporters saw it last week, but you'll get it this week. Please do check that one out because as I say, I'm very, very pleased with it, and I think it's a really good one. It is a real world video as well, which is relatively unusual for me. Hopefully there'll be something for the supporters as well next week. I don't know. I haven't got anything made just yet, but we'll see. Wednesday will be the weekly XCOM stream. Last week went fairly well to start with. We had a really lucky defeat on one of the Chosen, so we managed to take them out in what I consider to be extremely effectively. But it was a lot of that was down to luck, and then unfortunately our luck didn't hold in the second time the assassin turned up, and things went a bit worse. But you'll have to go back and check out the VOD if you want to see exactly what I mean, and come along on Wednesday to see everything unfold live. And then, of course, on Friday and Saturday, there'll be more of these catch-up videos. So, thank you again for watching, and I'll see you for all the future videos. Bye-bye.